My name is Sam Lauk. I'm Director of Operations for Client Success here at Engaging Networks. And we're just going to be having a look at some of the functionality in the platform for tracking campaigns and then also kind of tracking your supporters. So we're going to have a look at our tracking parameters, including marketing channels, the extremely popular external reference fields that have been referenced a number of times now, as well as origin source. So we're going to have a look at kind of where all of those things live in the platform, and then we're going to go ahead and also look at what reporting is available for those things. So the first thing we're going to have a look at are tracking parameters. So tracking parameters are, it's a parameter as well as a value that can be appended to your page URLs and get stored with that transaction. So it just allows you to know kind of how a supporter came to that page. A good use case example for this is, maybe your social team reaches out to you and says, it's we would like to share on Facebook a donation page. You can create a tracking parameter with a value of maybe Facebook. And then you know that all gifts made through that Facebook post, came as a result of that Facebook post. In terms of finding tracking parameters in the platform, you can go here to Pages, and then Components, and then over here. And if we go ahead and select New Tracking, this is the name of the tracking parameter within your Engaging Networks account. Maybe we want to call that ENCC Toronto 2023. This is the actual value for the parameter. So this will, as it says here, appear in the URL. And so if you're trying to be more discreet, you can have just a random value, or you can also just have that be really informative itself. So if we go ahead and create that, once you've created a tracking parameter, you can then apply it to pages under here in the Pages menu, and then Manage Pages. And then if we go to a particular page, for example, if I just click to expand this page, this is generally where you would be able to get the live URL for your page. But if we select this Manage Tracking option, and then we select the pencil icon, you can then add that particular tracking parameter. And if we use that, you'll see that it's now created a version of that live URL that has our tracking parameter appended to it. And so this is the kind of the latter half of this is the bit of the tracking parameter that's been added. And if we go ahead and save that, we now see that that's been added to that URL. So that's what's available for tracking. I think something that's maybe, I think tracking is fairly widely used by clients, but something that may not be is marketing channels. So marketing channels what they do is they allow you to associate associate UTM values with those tracking parameters. So we're just gonna have a look at that. So we're going to go here again to Pages, Components, and then we were just looking at Manage Tracking, but we're just going to have a look at Manage Channels. And as it says here, this is, it's in a bit of a beta phase, so we are sort of soliciting feedback for this feature. As you kind of continue to use it and start to use it, if you have feedback for us, we would love to hear it. So if we then go to a particular, if we go to a particular channel, for example, this allows you to assign the values for the UTMs that would get appended. And if we go back to tracking and we edit a particular tracking parameter, you can then assign that tracking parameter to a marketing channel. So if we do that for this one, for example, maybe we want it to be, we'll do Facebook, and we'll go ahead and save. And then if we go back to our back to pages in terms of adding this to a page, and we go here and manage tracking. If we now, you'll now see this option here to append Google Analytics UTM codes. So if we toggle that option on, you'll see that it's now, in addition to the tracking parameter that we initially added to the URL, it's also added the UTMs that are associated with that marketing channel to the URL. So it's really a way of kind of streamlining your process for creating links that have additional kind of tracking parameters within them. These UTM values are also captured transactionally in Engaging Networks. And so, like I said, we're going to be talking about external references 6 through 10, but UTM parameters are considered external references 1 through 5. And so those are captured with the transaction after all of the, if you're familiar with our transaction data structure, it's going to be after all of the campaign data columns. All right, so the next thing we are going to have a look at are external references, 6 through 10. So those are just additional transactional fields that you can add to the admin settings of a page, and they will get captured with that transaction. Oftentimes they're used to capture things like a fund ID or a campaign ID, appeal code, things like that. So the first thing you'll have to do, they're not going to be turned on in your account by default, so you would first want to enable them in your account. You can do that under Hello, and then Account Settings. And under this Account Preferences option here, if you just scroll down a bit, you'll see campaign references here. You can enable kind of as many or as few as you'd like, and you can also assign a label to them. So this is the label that your users will see in the page admin settings. And so, if you were going to be using this for something like campaign or appeal, you may give it a label with that particular name. Once these campaign references have been enabled here, they will then be available in pages. There's also an option here in the email settings. So again, we're going to be, this email menu is available for now, but we are going to be moving everything under this marketing tools menu. So to show you where it is under there, it's just going to be marketing tools and maybe it's still just under the email menu. So it's email and then settings. And under this Google Analytics tab, there's also this option to expose campaign reference fields in the messaging tool. And so those would allow you, in addition to using external reference fields on pages, it would also allow you to use it in email. And to show you where those external reference fields are, I'm going to go here to Pages and then Manage Pages. And if we open up the admin settings for a particular page, you'll see the fields that are available here. So this is the label that you've given your campaign reference field, and this is the value that you would enter. And then once you've assigned in a value there, moving forward, if a supporter submits this page, that value will get stored with their transaction. So again, commonly we see it used to capture things like fund, appeal, campaign, things like that. All right, next thing we're going to have a look at is Origin Source. Origin Source is a feature that allows, it's something that can be created in your account and then associated with your pages. And if a supporter submits that page and it's their sort of first action in your account, that value gets written to their record. And so it's just a good way of knowing how, a good way to determine how you acquired a particular supporter. So we can look at Origin Source. So again, under Pages, Components, Origin Source. And if we go ahead and create a new Origin Source, you can give it a particular name. So maybe we do ENCC Toronto 2023 again. This notes field is just an internal notes field that other users in your account can reference. In addition to origin source, we also have origin source category. That is a more broad category. So for example, you might have a particular fundraising appeal, and that might be the origin source, but the category may just be something like fundraising. So you can assign that here as well. There's also just some organizational options, so you can tag your origin sources and then search for them using that tag. Go ahead and save. Once you've created an origin source, you can then apply it to a page. So again, back to the Pages menu, Manage Pages. And we're going to go again into the cog icon, so the page admin settings, and then you can assign the origin source here. And then again, if a supporter doesn't yet exist in your account and they submit this page and it's kind of their originating action, they will have that value written to their record. You can also import values for origin source for supporters. So you would just need to import origin source and origin source category for supporters. All right, next thing, we're just gonna have a look at some of the reporting that's available for the things that we had a look at. With tracking parameters, that is going to be available in a number of reports in Engaging Networks. So here under Data and Reports, if we go to the data reports, for example, we have advocacy, fundraising, and email reports. Tracking parameters are going to be included in the data reports for advocacy and for fundraising. So those will be included as columns in the reports that are exported there. Going back to the Data and Reports menu, if we go to Visual Reports, there are a number of these reports that also include metrics related to tracking. So for example, if we just go to this advocacy report and we scroll down, we'll see there's an option here for top tracking. And so this is just the number of advocacy actions that had that particular tracking assigned for the time frame that I have selected here. Most of these reports also include origin sources as well. So you'll see top origins here. Also, if I know we were referencing profiles, so profiles are ways of segmenting your supporters and can be used for things like conditional content. Those are also have a number of filters available related to kind of what we were discussing here. So under Data and Reports, and then Profiles, and then if we create a new profile, origin source as well as origin source category are available filters in profiles, as well as tracking parameters. So those are also available as profile filters. So this would just allow you to create a segment based on particular tracking parameter value. As for the external reference fields, like I said, those will come out with the particular page transactions. And so if you're familiar kind of with that structure, we have columns named, campaign data 1, campaign data 2, all the way up to campaign data 35. The external reference fields are going to come out after those campaign data columns. Something also to note is that those do need to be turned on in order to come out in the data. And so to do that, you would have to go here to Data and Reports, and then this API options, and this file format. So by default, you'll see these are all of the columns that are enabled to come out in that data. And so you would just want to ensure that for those marketing channel UTM parameters, 1 through 5 were enabled. And for the page admin external reference fields that we were looking at, that 6 through 10 were enabled. I think that's it. I'm happy to answer any questions that folks have about tracking and kind of what's available. And
Thank you so much, Sam. All right, so we already got a bunch of questions coming in, which is great. That means I don't have to just kind of sit up here and ad lib, so it's always a nice thing. All right, so there may be some questions that are kind of product feature-y related. We'll try to answer them as best we can. Are there plans to add new marketing channels or let people input their own? For example, telemarketing and direct mail.
There have been requests made by other clients that we have to add marketing channels, and we have added additional marketing channels. So I would say reach out to either support or your account manager and make that request, and we can add additional marketing channels there.
Yeah, so what we did is when we originally designed them, we did a client-wide survey and had people respond kind of generally what they might be looking for, and then tried to collect those all into pretty broad categories. We understand that every nonprofit, you might call things like slightly differently or have slightly different things. The idea is it's trying to be a platform that a lot of people can use, and that then we can reference it to do some like benchmarking and things like that would be like an ideal. But if you do have one, just like Sam said, let somebody that at Engaging Networks know about it, and we can probably get it added within usually a month or two, within like a release. It's a pretty straightforward thing to add something like that. So, all right, can we retroactively assign marketing channels to already live links?
Yes, it's not going to, if any transactions that have already happened against that page, it will not have those values. It will not change the transactional data that's already in, but you can add UTMs to live URLs. Yes.
You can also add attributes to a page, and then those will populate across the people who have participated in that page. Is that right?
Yep. So attributes are it's kind of like a tag that you can add either to pages or to emails, and those do kind of behave retroactively. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that would be like one way if you needed to retroactively get supporters who had already submitted the page would be attributes, yeah.
Yeah, so every once in a while we see that where clients want to start using attributes, they've been a client for 2 or 3 years, and they'd really love all of their pages that were directed towards big cats, for example, to have that big cat tag on it. And you can just add that attribute at any time, and then it'll look back historically to add that to any supporter. Will then be like a big cat supporter if you wanted a way to differentiate folks. So that works out pretty nicely. Can you review the differences between values created in the component section, so that would be like marketing channels, versus in the page admin area? Those would be like the external reference fields.
For external reference fields?
I was trying to just add some structure to the question that this person asked.
Oh, okay.
It was, can you review the differences between values created in the component section versus in the page admin area? But you set up 2 different things in those 2 areas. So maybe just talking about those a bit more.
Yeah, I guess I'm not sure.
I think the way that I would think about it is what you're doing in the component section. Oh, we're not on it anymore. What you're doing in the component section, those are your marketing channels. Mm-hmm. So that is where you are saying, like, we have this particular marketing channel that we are going to then utilize as a part of a campaign link. That marketing channel is made up of parameters, of URL parameters. Mm-hmm. In the admin setting, so in the account admin setting, there are 2 things that Sam looked at. There are external reference fields. External reference fields are available at a page setting and at an email level, right? And aren't necessarily associated with marketing channels. Could be, but they're not necessarily associated. Right? And then you also have, on the email setting side, you have the ability to turn on those external reference fields inside of an email. So they are 2 separate things that can be conjoined in some more kind of complex marketing structures, I would say.
Right.
I feel like I got that?
Yeah, no, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Can form dependencies determine what external reference field gets applied to a donor?
No, at least not out of the box. That's not possible.
Yeah. I think the way you want to think about external reference fields, those are fields that are set at the page level that no matter what, someone gets that value. So a great example is, let's say that you push all of your fundraising data over to Razor's Edge. And you know that every single donation that comes from this page needs to have the appeal code ABCD, no matter what. That would be a great use for an external reference field, because it is set at the page level is really how you want to think about those external reference fields. There are definitely clients here in the room right now who use external reference fields in that exact way for Razor's Edge to send a fund ID, appeals description,
campaign ID.
And I think one other one, right? And they are set at the page level. And if you want to talk to them, they can make themselves known if they feel like making themselves known. But that's probably the most complex use of those, I would say. But that's how you want to think about them. They're flexible that way. Do you have to use origin source category if you use origin source?
You do, yes.
Yeah, it has to have a category assigned to it. From Carrie. Hey, Carrie, we wish you were in Toronto. What's the benefit of setting up tracking in Engaging Networks when I know you can just set the ea.tracking.id on any Engaging Networks URL?
Yeah, so that works perfectly fine. So if you just kind of reverse engineer the necessary parameter and then enter your own value in the URL, that will still get captured with the transaction. And I don't think it's an issue anymore because we now have a wildcard in Query Builder. But before you wouldn't see, so I can actually just jump on the computer and just show you really quickly. But so if we go to Data and Reports and Export and to New Query, and so this tab here is going to have your tracking. And so any tracking that you've added to your account will be available here. But we have now added this wildcard option, and so it was that was kind of one reason to add the tracking was to have it available here in Query Builder. But I would say it's maybe less necessary now that we've added that wildcard option. So,
well, I would say that a lot of it also comes down to how you're structured internally as an organization. If you're kind of like what we were talking about yesterday with the marketing tools, right? If you're comfortable with a lot of this, then you're just like, well, why do we need kind of preset defaults? Because I can always just do whatever. But the question is like, as you get promoted through your organization, maybe you shouldn't be writing emails and adjusting URL parameters inside of an email. And you want to be able to hire people who are very competent marketers, but who might not feel comfortable kind of diving into the back end of a platform to make those kind of updates. So I think that it's balancing that and trying to provide some more options so it's more accessible to more people at your organization.
Right. Yeah, and maybe also from a data integrity standpoint, if someone's just selecting an already existing tracking parameter, that they're formatting it the exact same way as the other user, and so maybe another reason to rely on the tools.
Totally. There are two questions that I'll take, and it's about adding more external reference fields. If you can write me a 500-word essay on why you need more external reference fields, I might consider it. No, but if that's something that you need, just write in. I've worked here for 7 years. I haven't had many people ask me for that. So if you need it for some reason, just let us know and we'll figure out a way to maybe do something. Who knows? The data structure is kind of set, but there may be other ways that we can kind of flex around it as well. So, and last question, how would you recommend tracking both channel and source as well as additional variables, like which button drove the person to the donation form from a landing page?
I think you could use kind of a combination of all the things that we covered here. So I think for a button, a tracking parameter value would be probably the most valuable. But yeah, I think basically the link for that particular button would just include everything that we just discussed. So those UTM parameters, as well as a tracking parameter and a value indicating a button and maybe where it is on your site.
Yeah, I think that example is the exact reason to have tracking parameters. So that way, every time you put a button on your homepage, you can add that, and then you maybe add one other extra piece to it. That this was the footer button versus the right corner call out button, right? I think that's a very good use of tracking parameters.
Yep.
Sam, thanks so much.